As you can see, this is a truck, and it's unloading several hundred pounds of orange peel and pulp right in the middle of a national park in Costa Rica. This wasn't a coincidence or some kind of mistake. In fact, back in the 1990s, about 1,000 of these trucks came to this spot to dump the waste from an orange juice factory. Even though what was going on was crazy, the trucks weren't doing this at night. No one was trying to hide, and the national park employees even approved of this waste dump. In total, 12,000 tons were unloaded, huge piles of sticky orange compost. So this is the story of orange waste, rivalry, a big court battle, and above all, a magical makeover. I'll make myself some coffee, although orange juice might be more fitting. But I don't have an intro with it, so coffee it is. Just an unobtrusive reminder to do something under the video in case you forget to do it. And I just want to say that the place where the waste was dumped wasn't chosen randomly. I'm not talking about just the national park, but a specific area within that park. It was a pasture where not much grew, kind of like a wasteland. Costa Rica is a gorgeous and ridiculously biodiverse country. Just to give you an idea, it makes up only 0.03% of the land, but 6% of the world's biodiversity is packed into that tiny space. Costa Ricans are super proud of their reputation as one of the greenest, most eco-conscious countries in the world. And honestly, who wouldn't be proud in their position? However, even here, there are areas that can literally be called barren. Even in the national park, there was such a place, the very spot where the orange waste was dumped. This area was a degrading pasture with a few scattered, stunted trees. In fact, even animals couldn't graze there. It was just abandoned land. Of course, it wasn't always like this. It's just that cattle have been grazing here for centuries, and in the end, the land just couldn't handle such relentless use. It's not like this is a unique story. The northwestern province of Guanacaste is the heart of Costa Rica, where cattle are raised, and more than a third of the 296,000 acres of land has been deforested. And even when grazing stops, the pastures are in no rush to return to their natural state. The land doesn't turn back into tropical forest, it stays covered in grass. And that's probably the main issue. African grass Hyparrhenia rufa, called haragua by locals, takes over the landscape, pushing out native plants and serving as fuel for fires in the dry season. These fires, in turn, kill off any seedlings of other plants trying to push through the grass. And since the grass itself is perennial, it just keeps growing. Maybe it's the only plant that can feel comfortable in soils depleted by grazing. At least this grass didn't seem to mind anything at all. At the same time, Del Oro had to figure out where to dump the waste from making orange juice, and the company happened to own some woodland right next to the park that it had no intention of cultivating, so why not turn that land into an orange waste dump? The idea first came from a married couple, Daniel Jansen and Winnie Hallwalks, ecologists from the University of Pennsylvania, who spent many years working as researchers and technical advisors at the Guanacaste Conservation Area in Costa Rica. Jansen and Hallwalks, who graduated from Princeton back in 1976, dedicated part of their careers to securing a future for endangered tropical rainforest ecosystems. And it was this duo that, way back in 1997, pitched a win-win deal to Del Oro. At the time, the company was just getting into orange juice production, with its facilities located right along the northern edge of the reserve. The deal was simple. If Del Oro donates part of its forest land to the reserve, they get to dump their orange waste there for free. This is a win-win situation. The national park got more land, and Del Oro got free, carefully managed waste disposal. You'd think, what could possibly go wrong? The waste was dumped successfully, and over roughly half a year it became dense, black, loamy dirt. People who saw it said it was an absolutely gross sight, a heap of decaying junk, a foul smell, insects all over the place, and their larvae crawling around. It's no surprise this mess caught some unwelcome interest. Just a year after signing the deal, and during that time, 12,000 tons of orange waste had been dumped on the degraded land. A competing company, Tico Fruit, filed a lawsuit claiming that Del Oro had defiled a national park. Tico Fruit and Del Oro had been fierce competitors for quite a while before this. It was a tough, even bitter rivalry. Tico Fruit claimed that the environmental services contract was nothing more than a green light for improper waste disposal. So improper that these orange wastes are poisoning the soil in nearby rivers, creating a dangerous environment for pests and citrus diseases to thrive. According to Tico Fruit's lawyers, the oranges release toxic citric acids and oils, including D-limonene, which according to the same lawyers is a dangerous carcinogen. So it looked very bad indeed, and the pile of unprocessed orange waste left out in the open could lead to the spread of some of the most destructive pests, like the Mediterranean fruit fly. It's an invasive and very dangerous species that damages the fruit of over 200 different kinds of fruit and vegetable crops. But why did Tico Fruit get so upset about dumping oranges in the park? The thing is, before the deal between Del Oro and the Nature Reserve, Tico Fruit had to upgrade its own waste processing plant, and then competitors just decide to dump orange leftovers in the forest and no one objects? Of course that's pretty frustrating. In the end, a well-planned media campaign turned the country against the experiment of dumping the peel, despite the statements from environmental groups like the Rainforest Alliance claiming the experiment was environmentally safe. The Supreme Court of Costa Rica ruled to shut down the project. Even the $100,000 spent by Del Oro on legal services and PR couldn't help. The 20-year contract was canceled. The head of the regional environmental agency who'd been negotiating with Del Oro lost his job, although officially it was for other reasons, but everyone knew what was going on. This situation served as a vivid reminder of the risks that can accompany even well-intentioned environmental efforts. The experimental project was abandoned and almost forgotten, and no one took notice of the area where the waste was dumped. This went on for 15 years. And so, 16 years after that whole orange waste dumping, a team of researchers from Princeton University checked out the damaged area. Despite all the warnings from Tico Fruit's lawyers, the scientists found a 176% increase in above-ground biomass in the 7-acre area they surveyed. While people were arguing with each other in court, agricultural waste was not only restoring the forest, but also absorbing a significant amount of carbon at no cost. This is one of the few known cases where carbon sequestration, that is, its long-term storage, turned out to be not just free, but actually cost negative. It turned out the problem was finding the former wasteland. It took several trips to the spot to finally spot a 6.5-foot sign with bright yellow letters marking the area. And this was with the sign being right next to the road. What used to be a gravel-strewn lot with dead grass had turned into a dense forest tangled with vines and grapevines, and people had to put in a lot of effort to make their way through it. Scientists also found significant differences between areas covered by orange waste and those not affected by this initiative. It wasn't hard to tell because they were separated by a dirt road, so the orange area had more fertile soil, a greater tree biomass, more tree species, and a denser forest canopy. They also found a fig tree here, and it was so massive that it would take 3 people to wrap their arms around its trunk. Another surprising finding was that the invasive African grass had disappeared. The orange flesh and peel choked it out, and local plants moved in to take its place. So what about carbon? Actually, aside from the double benefit of fighting waste and bringing barren landscapes back to life, denser forests also absorb more carbon from the atmosphere. So, of course, the question arises, how did this even happen? Why did 16 years of isolating the area plus orange waste lead to such a result? Well, no one knows for sure. Researchers say it's a million-dollar question and are still struggling to answer it, at least with 100% certainty. One theory is that it was some kind of synergy between suppressing invasive grass and rejuvenating heavily degraded soils. Since no one had been around this spot for 16 years, nobody kept track or made any notes. We'll never know the exact mechanisms for the rejuvenation in this system. It's possible that placing such a large amount of orange peel all at once flooded the soil with nutrients and also suppressed the invasive grass that was blocking tree growth. But that's just a theory. Researchers hope that the success of this 16-year-old abandoned orange peel dump will inspire other similar nature conservation projects. By the way, here's an interesting fact. The agreement made in August 1998 between Del Oro and the reserve involved transferring 2,965 acres of forest land of the company to the conservation zone for 20 years. Just imagine if all that land was covered with orange waste for 2 decades. It would have made for a forest of incredible density and health. Maybe this would have completely changed our idea of soil restoration forever. Sadly, the unexpected success of the orange dump doesn't give any farming company the right to simply start dumping their waste in protected areas, but it does make us, meaning all of humanity, think about conducting proper experiments to see if this incredible result can be recreated. What was it based on? Maybe because the place where the orange waste was dumped was far from rivers and streams. That was likely important to keep the rotting orange waste from polluting the water. Some experts argue that part of the experiment's success depends on the country where it took place. Because Costa Rica's climate is sub-equatorial with minimal temperature fluctuations throughout the year, both in winter and summer the average temperature is 82 degrees Fahrenheit. There are dry seasons and seasons with high humidity, and all of this helped the peel first turn into compost and then fertilize the soil, kick-starting the restoration of the area and the growth of plants. I think, and experts seem to agree based on their publications, that this scheme wouldn't work in a place with a different climate. It might even lead to negative consequences. So if the experiment is to be repeated, it should only be with the approval of biologists, ecologists, and other experts in nature conservation. Also, don't forget the orange waste wasn't just thrown away like that, but only after some processing. That included extracting oils and acids, and without this essential step, the miracle wouldn't have happened. Plus, these oils and acids have commercial value in household cleaning products, so Del Oro has definitely benefited from it. Besides, before starting the project, Del Oro had to confirm that they didn't use pesticides or insecticides when growing their oranges. This means that the waste wasn't contaminated with chemicals and therefore couldn't introduce them into the soil of the national park. No dense forest would grow on soil soaked with chemicals. You know, there's another interesting experiment I came across while searching for information on today's topic, and it might just be able to recreate the success of oranges. The results of the experiment were published in March 2021, so it's quite recent. The idea was to test whether coffee pulp, the byproduct of coffee production, could help bring tropical forests in Costa Rica back to life. Researchers from the University of Hawaii and Manoa tested 2 areas to see how coffee waste would affect deforested land. It was a classic experiment. One area was covered with a 20-inch layer of pulp, and the other was left untouched. Each plot of land was used for many years, either for growing coffee or raising livestock, and eventually was abandoned. Invasive grasses dominated here, mostly that African grass. It's great for grazing animals, but prevents the restoration of local tropical forests. In short, the situation is just like with oranges in the 90s. 2 years later, on the plot that received coffee fertilization, there was a significant improvement. 80% of the area was covered with young tree canopy, with some trees already reaching 15 feet. Meanwhile, on the untreated plot, this figure was only 20%. On the coffee-treated plot, the trees were on average 4 times taller, the soil samples were richer in nutrients, and the invasive grasses were gone. And this is honestly just great news. The experiment's success not only provides coffee producers with a reliable way to handle waste, but also accelerates the restoration of destroyed forests. This is an incredible win-win situation. It takes hundreds of years for a rainforest to regenerate. Growing trees this tall in only 2 years? Now that's a real miracle. And this time, we're watching the miracle happen live. Of course, scientists agree that more research needs to be done to find out the long-term impact of coffee pulp and whether it causes any unexpected pollution. And you might be wondering, what exactly is coffee pulp? Look, coffee beans are the seeds of a fruit called the coffee cherry, which when picked looks like a bright red or yellow cherry. To get coffee beans, producers remove the skin, pulp, and other filmy parts of the fruit. Then they dry and roast the leftovers to make the grounds that become my coffee, which I drink before starting the video, and yours too. However, about half the weight of the coffee harvest ends up as waste, and that's the pulp. Coffee producers in Costa Rica usually send all the coffee leftovers to warehouses where they slowly decompose. The idea works like this. Lay a layer of coffee pulp on an area covered with pasture grass, and the foliage underneath will smother and cook until it dies and decomposes. Basically, all the roots and rhizomes of the grass will also die. After that, the decayed plant remains mixed with a nutrient-rich layer of coffee, creating fertile soil. This in turn attracts insects which draw in birds, and the birds then drop seeds onto the fertile patch, and of course the wind does the same thing. The first 2 or 3 years, everything looks like a mess. But then there's a kind of explosion of new plants. Still, that's no reason to cover everything around you with coffee production waste. Though the experiment with coffee pulp gave a boost to forest growth, It has its downsides. First of all, coffee pulp really smells bad. And it's nothing like the usual coffee smell. Many people find the smell of the pulp pretty disgusting. Plus, it attracts a ton of flies and other insects that are pests to the people nearby. There are also concerns that this could negatively affect the watersheds. Coffee pulp contains nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus, and they can harm streams and lakes, causing things like excessive algae growth. The pulp may also contain traces of pesticides used during coffee farming. The experiment, just like the one with oranges, was conducted far from water sources. But in future studies, the scientists plan to look into the potential impact on nearby areas. But if it works out, in fact, coffee pulp could do what orange waste didn't. At least researchers are hopeful about it because the pulp, quote, is less tangled in thorny political issues and is grown by smaller producers, not by two big competing companies. In short, there's a chance. The most important news in the past few days is that I need to get a test done. But I can't do it because I do this at a completely different time. Orange madness. It might be hard to believe, but people study orange peels pretty seriously. A special organization with a team of scientists from around the globe was actually created just to find new uses for the orange peels that come in huge amounts from farming. To give you an idea, the world churns out around 15.6 million tons of citrus waste every year. And all that has to go somewhere. That's exactly what scientists are working on. Almost 50% of citrus fruits harvested on an industrial scale end up as waste in the form of peels. In the past, this waste was often burned or sent to landfills, as only a few major juice producers could afford to process peels into animal feed or pectin, a substance widely used in the food industry. That's why scientists from various universities working together in an organization are developing a concept for eco-friendly fuel. They plan to use low-temperature, high-intensity microwave treatment to extract liquid from orange peels. Why is this being done if our planet doesn't seem to be running low on fuel? The thing is, it's all about the kind of fuel we use. Usually it's either fossil fuels or wood, and the latter threatens biodiversity due to the deforestation of tropical forests. A new generation of biofuel made from waste could be an eco-friendly alternative. And while these technologies still raise concerns about their environmental side effects, projects involving the recycling of peels are being actively funded. Cups from orange peel. How else can you use orange peels? For example, you can make juice cups out of them. An Italian design studio, Carlo Ratti Associati, teamed up with energy giant Eni to present a unique project called Feel the Peel. It's an innovative orange juicer that not only squeezes juice but also turns leftover peels into bioplastic right on the spot. It's a zero-waste process. The device stands 10 feet tall and its dome can hold up to 1,500 oranges. When a customer orders orange juice, the fruits roll down from the dome-shaped top, spiraling along a circular path. The oranges are then automatically sliced in half and juiced. The peels drop into a special compartment at the bottom where the transformation begins. The peels are dried, then ground into a fine powder. This powder is mixed with bioplastic powder made from polylactic acid, derived from renewable resources like cornstarch, cassava, and sugarcane. Next, the mix is heated, melted, and shaped into threads using a built-in 3D printer. And these threads are exactly what juice cups are made from. Convenient? Totally. Eco-friendly? You bet. Plus, after use, the cups can be recycled. Too bad you can't turn them back into oranges. Packaging from waste. Spain ranks among the top producers of oranges and juices, holding 5th place globally. The main region for citrus production is Valencia, accounting for around 60% of the country's total. Andalusia also stands out with its contribution to the agricultural sector, with production climbing more than 70% over the last few decades on 153,000 acres of land. As I already said, the production process in the orange juice industry generates a huge amount of waste, which either gets turned into feed pellets for animals or ends up in a landfill. Making those pellets takes a lot of energy, and landfills, well, they're landfills. Nothing good about them. So both ways of dealing with orange waste pose a threat to the environment. What can we do to make better use of peel? Turn it into packaging that's cheap to produce but offers high added value. Sounds like a total win. But how would it work in practice? Microbes could help with that. Thanks to the enzymes they release, orange peels can be broken down into various monomers. With some tweaks, these monomers could then be used to make bottles through blow molding. So the product is made from raw materials that cost $0. A dream come true. Unusual lamp. A startup from Milan, Krill Design, also found a unique use for orange peel. The company created a lamp called Omi, 3D printed and containing the extract of the peel from 2 Sicilian oranges. They launched the project on the crowdfunding platform Kickstarter, and I think fans of eco-friendly and stylish things backed this unusual project. Why? Well, this technology not only helps reuse organic waste, but also opens up new possibilities in design. And people really like it, since the lamp has already raised over $40,000. Besides its unique production method of biopolymer filament for 3D printers, Omi also features a unique texture that reminds you of an orange peel. The lamp, made with natural food dyes, not only has a bright color, but also a light citrus cookie scent. And it's not just a decoration for looks. Each lamp comes with a USB cable for power, a brightness controller, and an LED bulb with a brightness of 75 to 90 lumens. And if you ever get tired of Omi, you can safely send the lamp for composting without harming the environment. Oranges instead of concrete. I've already talked about cups, lamps, and fuel made from orange peels, but how about replacing concrete with it? Turns out that's possible too. Researchers from the University of Tokyo are actually suggesting turning fruit and vegetable scraps into strong building materials, and considering how huge food waste is worldwide, this approach could be both economically beneficial and help reduce harm to the environment. For example, instead of wood powder to make building materials, scientists used vacuum-dried and ground food scraps, cabbage leaves, citrus peel, as well as onion skins, pumpkin, and banana peels. The process involved mixing the food powder with water and other substances. Then the mixture was placed in a mold and underwent heat treatment. So what was the result? According to scientists, all the samples except the one made from pumpkin exceeded the established bending strength standard. The Chinese cabbage leaves were particularly remarkable, being 3 times stronger than concrete. What are the benefits of this method of producing building materials, besides the fact that they're cheap? It turns out that the materials produced are resistant to rot, mold, and insects, and they keep their appearance for up to 4 months outdoors. So don't be shocked if soon enough you'll see houses made from oranges or bananas on city streets. The main thing is don't lick them, even if you really want to. You owe me a like. See you later.